So another TCAF has come and gone. I always find TCAF extremely inspirational. It's one of my favorite times of year to see so many creative people being able to showcase and sell their work.
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed this year was it being Toronto Comic Arts Festival. People feel like they understand what comics are, and then they go in and they're exposed to new kinds of work, and it's really exciting for those individual artists to be able to get that audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I find a lot of people go in with not so much expectations, but I think there are certain artists that bring people in, people like Jillian Tamaki, who, if someone reads this one summer and then find out she's signing there, they go there and they're like, oh my god, there's this whole world of these small personal comics. And yeah, I always find that very exciting. So this year was TCAF's 15th year running. It took place May 12th and 13th at the Toronto Reference Library. So this is the third year we're doing a video like this. The second one between the two of us. Going this year without, planning so much on what I was going to buy allowed me to find pretty much exclusively new artists that I've never read anything from. So that was very exciting.
I did find I was drawn to the tables of the artists that I looked at last year, like the things that we bought last year, and wanted to buy more from them, but because I had such a limited budget, I tried to purchase things from new people.
Okay, so we're going to look at some of the pieces we picked up this year. I guess I'll start with Monoculture by Kurt Ankeny. This is a sketchbook of portraits of people and places around the Salem, Massachusetts area. It was published by 200 Zoo Press, and it's a limited run of 90. I've always really enjoyed, ever since I got into comics, I've always really enjoyed sketchbooks because I find that it gives a lot of insight into an author's process, an artist's process. It allows for a lot of experimentation, and it's very much in the moment.
Yeah, when I looked at this, I was really envious because it is sketches of people in coffee shops and cafes, so it's done right there in the moment. I've always wanted to do something like that, and when I look at something like this, it's really inspiring, and I think, why don't I? Like, I should be doing that. I should be doing that right now. I have my pen and my paper, so let's go.
Up next, we have Zelda Challenge by Stephanie Zuppo and Friends. Now, this is about Zuppo's self-imposed challenge to finish every Zelda game and make comics about it. As a lifelong fan of Zelda, I really enjoyed their approach. They admit to knowing nothing about the Legend of Zelda series, and with so much, toxic gatekeeping within the nerd community, to flat out say, I know nothing and I'm just looking forward to enjoying this, I find that very, very refreshing. I also love the way that it's designed. Zuppo has actually cut out the Triforce insignia and put glitter paper under it. It has this really cool effect. Yeah, I really enjoy this and look forward to reading more of them, and can't wait until they get to Wind Waker. That's my personal favorite. As mentioned before, generally when I go in, I know exactly what I'm going to buy. Obviously this year was different, and I found that there was a lot of walking around and hesitation before I finally pulled the trigger and bought something. The first thing that I bought here was The Center for Otherworld Science by Shing Yin Khor. Now this is a series, this is issue 3, and the story is described simply as about monsters and people. First off, it's printed on this gorgeous, what is this? It's like some kind of cardstock. But I love the production of it.
It feels like watercolor paper. Like cold press watercolor paper.
I love it. I love how weird it is. The theme of this one, because I did look at all of her work, the theme of this one very much seems to be dreams, and
I love anything to do with dreams. There's one page in particular that really gets to me. The one where the main character is in the fetal position and in kind of a cloud, and it's the break between the dream and reality.
And finally, for at least my purchases, we have Ashcan Arcana by Jason Lee. Now this was put out by Nothing Left to Learn out of Pittsburgh. The cool thing about this publisher is that 25% of all proceeds are donated to community groups. $1 from the sale of this actually went to the Restaurant Opportunity Centers United. This is an organization which basically advocates for labor and workers' rights. Ashcan Arcana is an illustrated essay concerning the service industry and what it's like living in America, we'll say post-2016. As somebody who has spent the better part of 15 years working in service, I found a lot of it relatable, whether I wanted to or not, or whether it was pleasant or not. This is about Lee's experience working in the service industry over the course of 9 years in a bunch of different kinds of establishments. There is so much familiar in the way that he profiles different bosses or customers that he's had over the years. Excuse a bit of a rant here, but something that I come back to time and time again, especially when thinking about working in a cafe or in a restaurant again, is that small business does not equal ethical business. You know, it's a nice thought to think that shopping local is you're supporting someone's dream, but more often than not, you're supporting someone's coke habit, or putting up with substandard work environments, even by the low standards set by the industry.
One of the things we hear a lot about the service industry is the need for emotional labor. Like, I don't think it's true for our audience, but I think a lot of people don't believe it's a real thing. But I think this is it's illustrated really well by the last spread, where it compares the, like, ethics of eating ethically versus considering, like, what does it mean to employ somebody ethically or receive service from somebody ethically.
Absolutely. This notion that you have to smile when giving service, and that even if you're working a 14-hour day and it's your 14th in a row, you still have to smile and you still have to offer this experience and create this illusion of a friendly work environment when the way you're being treated is absolute garbage.
Like, also, sexual harassment is rampant in the industry.
It's horrible. It's so much reform needs to go into it, and people don't like thinking about it. People go out to celebrate things, and you're part of this, and Lee talks about this, where you get swept up in it, and it's kind of like there's all this celebrating going on around you and you feel great, and then you see the check and it's like, oh, for 20 people you've tipped me $15. One thing that I learned from this book is that as terrible as this industry is here in Canada, it is so much worse in America. I think at one point he mentions the wage. I can't imagine that. The last place I worked was $14 an hour, and I thought that wasn't enough. When talking about raising minimum wage, a lot of small businesses, and that's always how they frame it, again, not necessarily an ethical business, but it's always framed that if we could pay them more, we wouldn't be able to survive. And whenever I hear that, I think, if your business can't sustain without exploiting somebody else, your business sucks and you don't deserve to be in business. And that's often something that I think about. Where is the line between, okay, I am contributing to this business and I'm being rewarded for it, and flat out I'm being exploited. This essay is very informative. It explores kind of everything we've talked about, as well as the relation between race and service, the roots of the service industry coming from newly freed slaves, and the fact that certain organizations lobbied to not have to pay them a living wage, and we've just kind of clung to this system. I can't recommend this enough.
We have limited time, but without saying anything about the format of it, like the relationship between the illustrations and the text, which I think is unique, is worth mentioning.
So, I guess, Josephine, what did you buy this year?
Every year at TCAF, they bring in a international exhibit. Last year it was the German pavilion, where we saw Rotopole, which we really enjoyed. This year they had a Danish comic pavilion that was a collaboration between TCAF and Art Bubble, the Danish International Comic Arts Festival. I felt kind of disappointed, to be honest, because Rotopole was so exciting. But one of the differences I did experience was kind of having like a personal interaction with one of the artists. I picked up this publication from the collective Random Walk Comics. The author we spoke to is Karoline Stjernfelt. I'm sorry, I know I'm not pronouncing that right. We showed interest in this comic, and she got very excited and told us that she had only brought so many comics, and this was the last one, and she was surprised that she sold out. And to me, to travel that far and have such low expectations is, I don't know, it's a lot, and I'm really glad that I managed to pick up the last piece. She was especially excited about this because it is a collaboration, and like Brian was saying earlier about the Zelda challenge, 3 of her friends got together and said, we don't know anything about space, but we think it's really cool. Let's make comics about space. They're not experts, and they aren't people with science degrees, but they have something to share about the joy of learning about space and planets, and they wanted to share that.
What I love about these kind of collaborations is the way that, especially something like space, can be explored in so many different ways, and how the styles contrast with each other. I always find it really interesting.
As we were going through and looking at the tables, I was very aware that I had a limited budget. So I kind of got very laser focused on what was the cheapest thing on the table. And that led me to Here I Am by, I'm not sure the name of the artist, but it says on the back, deepdarkfears.com. When I picked it up, the person behind the table immediately said to me, when you hold it up to the light, you can read the words that are on the other side of the page. That kind of experimentation and taking that risk is like one of the great opportunities that publications like this provide.
That's also my favorite thing about zines in general, is the experimentation with form, and yeah, this is really cool. I really enjoy this.
The very first one that I dove in and bought was Don't, Some Bad Dudes by Theodore Taylor III. I picked it up because of the striking contrast in the illustrations, just the use of the blacks and the whites and the grays, and the repeating text.
Don't even look at me.
Don't even look at me. Don't even try.
As advertised, it is a series of bad dudes. I love the way that it's just a series of illustrations working around the theme of some bad dudes.
Yeah. I think it's also produced really well.
That's gorgeous.
Another one that I picked up is one that I don't even remember buying. I remember that we came home and took all of them out of the bag, and I went, is this one yours? And you went, no, that one's yours. And I'm like, what? I don't remember picking it up. But it feels like one of those things that, like, the universe has put into your hands and been like, you should have this. Here it is. This is for you. It's a short story that seems to be, like, about the beginning, like, the first being. It's a little rat-like creature or sheep-like creature. It just explores how it comes to, I guess, bring the universe into existence. It's called Yorm? Or Yorm? And to wrap it up, this one is my very favorite. It's called Cricket Goes Outside by Reilly Hadden. And when I realized they were both by the same person, how Yorm came to be in my hands made a lot more sense. This is just a sweet little story about a cat having a great day outside. And the simplicity and the restrained use of color and the attention to detail, the edges are all very even and lovely, and it's sometimes all I want is a nice little story about a cat, and that is just the pinnacle of creation for me.
So that was our experience at TCAF 2018. Any final thoughts?
It was interesting to see the differences between what I picked up versus what you picked up. Like, there's so much at TCAF. Like, we are two people with very similar interests, but I think what I chose to buy versus what you chose to buy are very different.
Well, I think it speaks to the personal nature of zines, where because of the way they're produced, you can pick something up that feels like it was specifically made for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's something that I've always enjoyed, and it's funny, again, tying back to the idea that I went in not knowing what I was going to get, and it makes sense that everything that I came out with.
It's very fitting.
It's very fitting. And we are going to do a video actually on the Zineland Terrace, which was the kind of zine-centric counter-programming that TCAF did. Stay tuned for that. Where can people find you online, Josephine?
You can find me at josephinenorman.com or at Josephine on Twitter.
And yeah, and if you enjoyed this video and you haven't already, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and leave a comment about your experience at TCAF. So for Josephine Norman, I'm Brian Clark. Thanks for watching.
Somebody else's picture is in a picture frame where yours always used to be.